Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of Diaspora Chronicles. My name is Muloongo Muchelemba, and I am the founder of Ongolo.com, a Pan African website whose main objective is to keep Africans connected and engaged and to promote Africa and Africans. On today's program, I'm really excited to have Professor Leonard Wantchekon from Princeton, who's the founder of the African School of Economics, and was featured in The Economist on 21st of May. And I reached out to him and asked if it was possible for him to appear in my show. And I'm really excited that you said hello. Yes. So, Professor, welcome to the program.
Yeah, my great pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having me. Now, I've noticed that the Wi-Fi is really patchy. Can you see me okay?
Yes, I did.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. I should have pronounced it correctly. Wantchekon.
Yes, perfect.
Great. Well, I thought it would be great to start the program by just getting to know a little bit about yourself. I mean, obviously, people have read The Economist story, but it would be great to hear directly from you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I was born in Benin and born from two subsistence farmers' parents, but in a village that had been exposed to education much early, like late 19th century. So it's a very extraordinary place to grow up because everyone was very, very driven by education. So in the end, I made the most of that opportunity. I grew up in environments where education is valued, and it helped, for me early on to be known to be somebody very, very, very curious, somebody who is always asking questions, somebody who is engaged with everyone, who has a lot of friends, and it pushed me very, very hard, very, very, very far. In the end, I went to the city to go to middle school, high school, and then later on, I became political activist. So I survived that. That was not easy, but then it gave me the opportunity to travel to the US, first to Canada and then to the US. And then the rest is history, as they said. I'm now a professor at Princeton University after spending about 10 years at New York University and 6 years at Yale University.
Wow. So I know there are quite a lot of people who'd be interested to hear about your journey to becoming a professor. So what was that actually like? I mean, you were at New York University before that. So just tell us about your education, your actual education, and then becoming a professor at Princeton.
So I was in Benin. I was a math student. I was in mathematics, but then I have always been interested in social science. So I was, as I said earlier, I was very, very curious about the world around me, the history of Africa, the community where we come from, what we do, the slave trade, colonial history, and sociology. So I read very, very widely. And then second, because I was part of a left-wing movement, I was also very exposed to Karl Marx and many other thinkers very, very early. I think this is very important. It was a time where even as a youngster, I was a bit 14, 15 years old. I was already part of a movement that where most of the leaders were far older than I was. So I learned a lot from them. And so when I came to the US and to Canada first, and I wanted to enroll in mathematics, it became very clear to me that in fact I could also be a social scientist, somebody who applied mathematics and statistics to social science. And in the end, when I enrolled, I was so passionate about it. And also I was lucky to be pushed by faculty and colleagues and a family that was extremely, that pushed me very hard. And I finished my PhD very quickly. It takes usually 5 years, 6 to finish. I finished in less than 3. And in fact, I went to a job market very early, but I was lucky enough to get a job at Yale to start with. And from Yale, as I said, I went to NYU, but I got tenure. And then after 10 years at NYU, I came to Princeton. So I think the biggest asset that I have was my past, by the fact that I have deep understanding of Africa. Not that deep understanding, because as I said earlier, I'm always very, very curious. I ask a lot of questions. So what I'm doing currently is just make the most of what I've learned about Africa and be able to tell a story about Africa that's not told by most people, and by try to distinguish myself from others by saying, I know what I'm talking about because I'm from there, and Anyway, so my journey is a combination of passion, about curiosity, and also about humility. Because I always think that I can do better than what I'm doing. I always talk, even people have not, who are not researchers, scholars like me. I listen to them, I talk to them, and many of my work come from talking to my family, talking to my friends, and get inspired by something that they tell me about Africa that I haven't heard about, that I don't know. So I think it's all about passion, humility, curiosity, and and determination to keep moving up. To be able to be the best you can be. Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, we've got comments from people. My friend David in Singapore is saying amazing academic record. And my friend Alex from Switzerland is also amazing. We've got people on the show, including my mom. So I need to say hello to my mother, who's an economist as well. So hi, Mom. And we've got a banker, Taz from Singapore, and Zella, who's an economist as well from Angola. So we've got a lot of people watching the show who are really inspired by your story and want to hear more about, Africa's School of Economics. But before we get to that, I want to touch on something that you mentioned and something the Economist also touched on, which was why are there few African professors in Ivy League schools? And one of the points that they made that I thought was fascinating was that even courses on Africa are taught by people who don't actually have a connection with Africa or not African. So why is it that there are few Africans, and what can we do to get more people like yourself in these good schools?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there are three things. So first is the fact that, let me put it this way. Universities in Africa tend to be focused on teaching. Well, even that, they are not doing such a great job in teaching, but not enough on research. Like for instance, from high school, from college, we should be getting students out to ask questions. Like for instance, to give you one example, like one of the most famous institutions in Benin is the institution of female warriors. The fact that in Africa, the frontline warriors were mostly women, or at least in large part women. And Amazon. So there was one Amazon who was living basically in my village, who died in 1940. It's only recently that I've heard that such a lady did exist. Assume that we were asking high school students, asking to get out and to ask questions about the existence of those, of those people in the community. They would have found out. So basically, what I'm saying is that research is not valued enough, and that's a problem. The second one is the fact that it's not just an African problem, a global problem. Like research universities are over concentrated in the US and Europe, and those universities are not doing good enough job, for instance, to branch out and to help other universities around the world to develop. And this is bad, not only, it's bad for science, because for instance, as I said, when you are working on Malawi, for instance, working on Zambia or working on Uganda, there's a value of having somebody with insight on those countries to be part of your team. It's a great value to have institutions from those countries who are teched up, who are well, who are strong, that you can work with, and then people just tend to develop those kind of projects in the US, in Europe, not trying to lift up, and be inclusive, So that's one problem. And then the third is that, as I said, earlier, one of the issues is also discrimination. Like I can tell you the whole day what I have to go through to be what I am today, but unfortunately, or fortunately for me, I don't listen. I think to be successful in the US, okay, you have to be curious. You have to stop. You also make sure you don't listen too much to people doubting who you are, doubting the depth of your knowledge, and so on, and move on. Because especially if you are lucky enough to be where you are. Like for instance, can you imagine, like for instance, where I am, that I'm telling stories about what have the kind of obstacle that I've been through, blah blah blah. I mean, I can mention that, but if I focus on that, it will be debilitating. It will be disempowering. So it's very important. And so the three reasons is the fact that there is racism, there is discrimination. It's also the fact that we are not developing research culture in our universities, you know, and the fact that many universities around the world who are up there are not doing enough to be inclusive. They are not making their innovation, their research activities inclusive enough. It's okay for them to stay where they are and do the work on their own, ignoring people who know perhaps the best about the topic, but happen to be living elsewhere. So I think that's the reason why you have so few basically faculty, not only in Ivy League school, but also universities in general. But, I think we need to do something about it. Yeah.
Okay, that's really great. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And then let's go to Africa School of Economics, which was the focus of the article in The Economist. So for people who didn't see this article, it was published on the 21st of May, I think, in The Economist. Fantastic article, which, as we talked about earlier before the show, was the first time that I was hearing about ASE. So could you just tell everybody watching the show what exactly the Africa School of Economics is, what inspired you to launch it, and what is your vision for ASE going forward?
So that's a great question. So as I told you earlier, the universities are not reaching out, are not trying to be inclusive, and then I cannot just be asking them to do it. I might just do it myself. So, and I was like, when I was being hired by Princeton University, I told them, well, I'm happy to stay at a New York university, but you got to help me to set up a school in Africa. You got to be involved, to help me set up a school in Africa. My contribution to your mission is to be able to do something in Africa, and to their credit, I mean, U.S. universities, if they want you, they give you what you want, So, and I got the support. I went there, and the goal is basically to just, create an environment where we can teach economics and social science at the same level, with the same curriculum, like what we observe here. And then to be research oriented, not only in terms of the teaching, but it's also in terms of the activities. Like for instance, 70% of the activities of the African School of Economics is research, and also play a role in public engagement. So we organize a lot of conferences and so on. So the goal is to really to create a center of excellence in economics. Okay, first, and then to be able to expand, to be able to use that, to apply that model in many more African countries, so that we have a critical mass of Africans who are doing research in economics at the same level as what we are doing here. And yeah, so that was my motivation, and I think it went very well. So for the past 4 years, 5 years, we have placed 20 young Africans into PhD program in the US. So we have, for instance, I have one student from the school who is doing his PhD here. We have another student who is at University of Wisconsin doing economics. She has 4 offers to go to PhD everywhere. And what is interesting is that she didn't have to go through Europe to come to Africa, not to come to the US. Straight from Africa to the top university here. And they are all doing very, very well. So now the next step is to get them to deliver in terms of research. And I'm very, very happy that some of them are really where they need to be. So now the next step for African School of Economics is to expand this success, which for now is just basically West Africa, like Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, to bring into East Africa, Southern Africa, and North Africa, so that we can expand the pool. So I mean, so basically that's my motivation. It's not just about asking people to be inclusive, asking universities and Western scholars to be inclusive. It's take the lead in bringing inclusivity, to academia. So if my contribution to academics is inclusivity and inclusivity in on the innovation and research, then I've done much of my work. So and also to be able to do it well, you have to give good example. You have to be doing your research as well, because you want the young people you are training to be inspired by your own work. So, and that's what I try to do. So I was able to find a combination between kind of social entrepreneurship in academia and doing my own research, which, as the article show, has basically the story of my life. From early on, I wanted to be a student and also be activist, And for me, activism was not always like just get out and demonstrate and protest. It's very important. I did that. But at the same time, it's about also bring thoughtfulness and research, so that when you denounce something, you should be part of finding how it should change and what it should change to. It's important that we are part of that as well. Anyway, so that's the story of the African Council of Economics.
So let me just do some quick fires so we can get some quick facts out for people. So when was ASC founded?
It was founded in 2014.
Okay, so it's almost 6 years old now. And how many students do you have?
Roughly 100 students each time on campus, but if you accumulate, it's about 250. But currently we have 100 students. So I mean, in a year, because at the beginning we only have master's program, 2 years masters. It's only last year that we introduced a very small kind of undergraduate program as well.
Okay, perfect.
So the size is very, 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 very. It's relatively small, because we focus on quality, on not just on like size and so on.
Yeah. And the instruction is French and English?
English. The master's program in English. The undergraduate is bilingual. It's French and English, but most is in English.
Okay, and accreditation. So we talked about this because having done my first degree in Zambia and placing students in Zambia for the Rhodes Scholarship, one of the challenges we always have is accreditation. I think you and I had a really interesting conversation about how it's recognized and why you have students going to really good schools globally.
Yeah.
So how have you managed that?
I think what I like about U.S. System is people are very pragmatic. For instance, if you see people who recognize you, if you see people who recommend you, and if they know the work you do, if they interview you and they see what you are saying, so the administrative kind of aspects become less of a problem for them. So basically, our students were able to get into all the top schools. We have many working at the World Bank, UNDP, and a lot of think tanks across Africa. So we are building a track record, in terms of, but we have a lot of students working at the World Bank, but I'm encouraged by that. But then the next step is making sure that those students I'm not just training people who collect data for Western scholars. We need them to take the lead. You need to think about issues. So that's why I'm encouraged by the fact that we have a large number of students who are in PhD program, that we also need to set up our own PhD program very short. We already started a small PhD program that will going to grow and expand. Yeah.
So I'm sure potential students watching this program will be curious to know, what is the tuition like at ASC?
So it varies. In Benin, it's about 2,500, so which is 10% of similar universities in other countries. So why? Simply because much of the revenue is based on research. We have revenue from research, and we get the student to work on a research project to be able to pay part of the tuition. But Benin is a relatively poor country, so. But then in Cote d'Ivoire, we are about less than 6,000, maybe 5,500, 5,500, for instance, roughly.
US dollars.
So that's US dollars, yeah, for the tuition. Yeah. So, but then, what we try to do is to be able to have scholarship opportunities for students and to to bring them in. But anyway, I mean, that's why the article of the article of The Economist started by saying no free education, because we stripped everything to the most important. It's not fancy buildings, it's not like very expensive kind of facilities and so on, but we spend a lot of money on faculty, particularly on faculty and students. So many of our faculty are US trained, Canadian trained, and those who are, for instance, trained in Africa are also very active in terms of publication. So anyway, so the approach is not the usual commercial kind of approach, but because again, at the end of the day, what I want is to say, do you know that student or that scholar who published in this journal who came from my school? So if that's all I have to say 20 years from now, then I'm happy, because anyway, so it's very much based on research, on excellence. So it's not very expensive. Yeah.
Well, that's really encouraging. And then in terms of your expansion plans, because you mentioned Southern and East Africa, how should people, who are you looking to partner with? Is it existing universities? Is it people like me who have land and maybe want to do a school? Like, what is your criteria for people to engage you, and how do they engage you?
I'm going to be straightforward and simple, all the above. Like, for instance, if there is an existing university to buy into this model, we can share the burden in terms of, you focus on logistics, we focus on the administration, we focus on curriculum, and so on. For instance, if there is big enough kind of, student body, and then we can actually try to get accreditation and open the school in the country. For instance, this is what we did in Cote d'Ivoire. Abidjan is the hub of West Africa, economic hub. So we decided to get accreditation to open our own campus. But again, even then, we are in a very, 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 we are in a very collaborative approach. Like for people, sometimes are surprised when I said, okay, I have this school. Can you come? Can we work together on this? Can we work together on that? Because people always think that, well, we should be in a competition. We should be driving students from. No, it does not. So, if you want to do it, if you are driven by excellence, by high academic excellence, we are together. We'll find a way. We can do dual degree program. We can do collaborative program. We can do exchange program. I'm willing to do exchange across border. Like, for instance, suppose that if I'm in Zambia, if we have a campus in Zambia, for instance, we can collaborate with Makerere across the border, exchange students. If we can create like a joint degree with the public universities there, because at the end of the day is the product. It's the product, and this is very, 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 very important. Is the product, and then one of the things that's also very, very important that I haven't stressed enough is partnerships. Like for instance, we have partnership with many universities, in Europe and the US. And one of the things we are doing more is dual degree program with some of them. Like the students spend time in Africa and some time here, and the last year they come back.
So that here you mean Princeton?
Yes. Oh, for instance, Princeton. We don't have a dual degree with Princeton yet, but we have with Ottawa. We have with Pittsburgh. It's going to be signed very soon. It's not finalized, and but then with other universities is exchange. And again, people get nervous when you talk about taking African abroad. So
why?
Because people think, oh, brain drain and all this kind of stuff. Like I don't know how many people are contributing, despite the fact that you are not currently, as we speak, in Lusaka. You don't know how many people are contributing to Zambia more than you do, despite where you are. So we shouldn't worry too much about where people are. We should worry much about what they do. We should worry about what they do. So If we bring people up, if they are capable, doing well abroad, and they are very, very, very active, that's what we need. We shouldn't worry too much about, oh, when they leave, are they going to come back?
Yeah, that's true.
Why are you going to worry about that even before they learn anything about what is abroad? And also, I mean, if you come to Princeton, you look at the faculty, maybe 2/3 or more of the faculty are from Europe, from Asia, from Latin America. So the best of the best from around the world are there. So nobody criticized the fact that, when the British scholars leave, they come here to study, they don't go back to the UK, But when they come to Africa, oh yeah, what? No, that's not the issue. The issue is that make sure that when they come, that they remain passionate enough about Africa, that they are connected to Africa, so that they can contribute to what we are doing, regardless where they are. And also, it's important to create opportunities back home. Like, for instance, easy for somebody who finished his PhD in the US to come back to Africa and to teach at African School of Economics. If there are similar schools in engineering, in cinema, for instance, it's easy for the people to come back, but don't ask people to go back to do nothing, So you have to create the opportunities, for people to contribute effectively, So it's a more complex issue. So partnerships are very important. Partnerships are essential, and partnership where we, basically we know what we want from a partnership. It's about knowing what others are doing and collaborate so that we can both be lift up as a result of a partnership, not just like partner in a way that we just give data and ammunition for Western researchers to do their work. Anyway.
Oh, that's great. So we've got a couple of related questions. So David asked the question, how is the pandemic going to affect the workings of the institution? And a similar question Taz has asked is, will the school offer online and distant learning? Like, what's actually happening now with COVID-19?
So with COVID-19, we are doing a combination of in-person and Zoom classes. But I think it's a blessing, in disguise, because my goal is that the next stage is to make sure that we combine online learning with in-person learning. That will expand the faculty pool, because there are many people who are so tied up with their commitment that they will not be able to travel to Africa for a week or for 5 days immediately. We can have an arrangement with them. It can be done in partnership with faculty who are based in Africa, so that it's joint teaching. Part is distant, run by somebody who is based abroad, and somebody is local. So we are committed to do both. But I think it's not acceptable that we think that it cannot be all online, because this is some of the model that I heard about. It's actually, it doesn't make any sense, because we like you cannot say, well, we don't have enough professors. Let's just get a bunch of people based in London, based in Stockholm, and they are going to teach distance to this guy that they never met, they never know, and they just parachute some kind of concept to these guys, So we need to combine online with physical, with in-person, and that's the approach we are using. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what you were up to last weekend. So I'm really keen to talk about innovation agenda that you're working on, and innovation in Africa in general.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think is critically important for me is, you can give me just 1 second. So one of the things that I think is critically important is really connection across discipline. I talk about Africans making sure that they are connected, but also it's also important that we connect across disciplines. Like, for instance, like economics know about culture and literature, and scientists connected with social scientists. So in response to COVID-19 outbreak, so one of the things that we did is to set up what we call the Pan-African Scientific Research Council. So last weekend we brought over 100, scientists from Africa together, and we did three things. So first, we have a research strategy. We say, okay, now we know who we are. We know where everybody is and what each of us is doing. Let's kind of develop a collaborative research program where, for instance, a microbiologist will be working with, a health economist, and somebody in sociology will work, or a historian will work with, somebody in epidemiology to do some historical epidemiology, for instance. So research program. The second is to set up a journal, a high-end, like high-level academic journal. The provisionary title is African Scientist. And then the third one is public engagement. So we want to talk to AU, to talk to international organization, to regional organization in Africa, and also to be able to reach out to students, to high school students in particular, to promote science innovation from high school. Because you remember what I told you earlier, that one of the big problems in Africa is research is not valued highly, And I think one way to do it is to have the younger people be inspired by us, by what we are doing. For instance, personally, as I told you earlier, what makes me passionate about science, I was lucky enough that even as a youngster, I was exposed to people who were studying in France, who were high achieving people. So I got inspired by them. Like the place where I did my sixth grade, it has a lab in palm oil,
Wow.
and it was one of the top in the world,
In
So
Benin.
yes, it was built in 1923, So okay,
Is it still in existence?
yes.
How
But
come we don't hear about these
if you study,
things?
if you find somebody who is studying, who is working on palm oil in Thailand, and you say Benin, he'll say yes. That's where one of my collaborator is or come from. Okay. So what I'm saying is that from learning from early on, I saw people in a lab looking for stuff. They have experimental farms where they can have palm tree that are not too high, but very, 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 Anyway, so public engagement with young people to get them to dream big on education and innovation is something which is going to be very, very, very useful. So that's what we want to do. I can share the video of the conference with you so that the audience can know what we are doing. But I'm extremely excited simply because we have done 70% of what we want to do, which is already making sure that we all together, that we know who we are. Many of these people, I've never heard about them before. When I read the CV and I said, how is it possible that I did not know that some people, we have a microbiologist who is that active, in Cameroon or in Cote d'Ivoire, and I'm pretty sure that in Zambia, in Uganda, there are many other people. So make sure that we are all at the same place. We know about each other's work, and then we can develop some kind of collaboration. Yeah. So anyway, so that's what it was last weekend. Yeah.
So, what are the ultimate in a year or two from now? What are you hoping to get out of this collaboration? Are we looking to see Africa being at the forefront of solving problems like the COVID-19? Were there any conversations about tangible deliverables?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So, for instance, already I'm trying to set up a partnership between a lab at Princeton, one of the top, working on virology, with Institut Pasteur in Cote d'Ivoire. So, and they will get together, they will exchange, and there will be exchange in both directions, with the goal being able to contribute jointly to understanding why is it, for instance, that the transmission rate in Africa is lower than elsewhere.
Do we know? Did anyone say anything on Saturday?
No, the research is ongoing. The research is ongoing. So, and there are a lot of hypotheses. For instance, is that the nature of is there a mutation of the virus when it comes to Africa? Is it because Africans had been exposed to similar outbreak in the past, so they develop immunity? Is it also something in the physical environment that contribute to this? This is what they are doing. So And anyway, so that's one of the tangible kind of results. But then the most important thing is to create the infrastructure to have things in place so that future outbreak, future crisis, whether it's political crisis, whether it's environmental crisis, people are ready to take on those questions, because they already know each other's work. They already, anyway. So again, but it's important that we don't do it in silo, that we are connected, but at the same time, we are linked up to labs outside Africa so that, the research is collaborative, so, and I think, I'm also very lucky that the dean or the associate dean for innovation um, in at Princeton University is an African American named Rodney Presley, so who is extremely enthusiastic about the concept of inclusive innovation. So he is pushing for the labs in Princeton to be more global. Again, it's not about getting the labs in Princeton to lecture people over there and how they have to do their work. It's about going there to learn, to get data, and then to be able to join forces with those labs to produce publication and to innovate on a wide range of solution so that they can together advance science and technology. So that's basically what we want to do. Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, the
Yeah.
future of Africa should be that every time there is a crisis like COVID, we are front and center and actually opining and helping to come up with solutions for that.
Exactly. Because I mean, one of the most inspiring story that I've heard is, for instance, the fact that, there is a small town in Colombia where people discovered that Alzheimer's disease might be driven by some kind of genetic mutation.
Okay.
That place is unique. You cannot find any place around the world with that feature. So, and the solution to Alzheimer's disease might be coming from that place. You see what I mean? So, what I'm saying is that advance in science will be faster if, for instance, our lab is not just like in a small place somewhere in a local university, but we expand it globally. So that, anyway, so in Africa, for instance, like HIV was in existence, now the research shows, since 1920 in Congo, and so there are a lot of aspects of health science in Africa that will contribute greatly to the advance in science in general, But then to be able to do that, you need to have capacity on the ground. You need to have scientists in those countries who can actually do the work and contribute to what is being done more globally. So innovation and inclusion, racial, spatial inclusion has to be part of what helps science to advance and solve problems.
So is there a website for this council? Have you already set that up?
Yes. So we are, okay. So the website, okay. The announcement is made through the African School of Economics, so that's good. But then I think before the end of the month, we are going to set up a website, because what we did on Saturday is to basically to have a sense of what people want, and for what they are willing to do. So we have a clear sense of what people want, they are willing to do. And so now we are going to set up a website and make it as large as possible, So anyway, so I'm extremely excited about this, because, the idea, even for myself, for my selfish interest, the idea that when I think of something and I say, oh yeah, I have a colleague, I have a brother somewhere in southern Somalia who is doing something like this. Yeah. I'm going to connect you with him or with her. This is great, But then if, if you don't have something like this, it's impossible, Like my colleague the colleague who wrote the article in The Economist, he told me exactly the same story. He said he has journalist colleague who wanted to know about what Africans are doing or thinking. about, about COVID-19, but he has to look hard to be able to find one because they don't have websites. They are not very visible. So what we need to do is to make those people visible, to promote their work, regardless where they are. So I think this is super important.
I think I'm gonna make sure I put some space on my website for that. So as soon as I
Let's
get
do that.
the announcement, I'm going to I will publish it on ongolo.com and then send a link as well to the council, just so people can keep up to date with what's happening on innovation, because this is quite an important topic.
Yeah.
It's for all of us. Like,
Yes,
I want to see
absolutely.
Africa front and center. We have such brilliant minds, and I think somebody
Absolutely.
mentioned
Absolutely.
it earlier. So there's a comment here from Emil earlier who said, we have brilliant minds coming out of Africa, and excelling at international institutions. And he's saying it's sad that excellence doesn't kind of have a base in Africa. So I
Yeah,
think,
but okay, the point here is that we can make the base, because African School of Economics is not based in Princeton. It's based in Benin, it's based in Cote d'Ivoire. And before the COVID-19, I was in Benin 4 times a year. I mean, if you ask people in Benin, where is Leonard? They say, oh yeah, he's here. They don't know that I'm here. So the point is not physical presence, I mean, and okay, you need some degree of physical presence. You can have physical, anyway, what I'm saying is that let not be exclusive, let not think that the only way you can contribute the best to Africa is when you live there 12 months a year.
that's
You
true.
can be living 3 months, you can be living 4 months, and be as effective as some people. Actually, I was making a joke of someone who say, okay, we need to look for people who are currently living 12 months in Africa. We are going to convince them to leave, go elsewhere, because some people who are, I'm kidding, there are people who are based in Africa. They are not just contributing, they are part of the problem, So, so let them leave, So anyway, so the point here is that it's what I said earlier, is what you do. It's what you do. But obviously you cannot do your best if you don't have a footprint. So that's why we, and at some point in time, I might be there 12 months. But I might be 9, I might be 6. Now I'm 4 to 5 months a year. But
Okay.
again, I'm going to be judged based on what I do. And with the expansion plan that we have for African School of Economics, I'm not just going to be in Benin. I'll be in many, many other countries. And this forum will make sure that people will see me as a local. Like for instance, if we are working together, somebody from let's say Malawi will say, "Oh yeah, I know this guy." I mean, I know what he does.
Great.
Yeah, so that's what you just want. We have to be very, creative in how we make our presence felt. It's not just one way.
I want your advice actually on a question that Lulu has posed, which is, I mean, she's based at the University of Toronto, and it said she's the only African PhD researcher in her research group, civil engineering, and the university has not historically incorporated questions from the global South, and most research is still in the global North context. So what can she do about this? What advice would you give her?
So I mean, okay, let me put it this way. So I think there seems to be a change in mindset of those researchers and say, well, collaborate with Africans, not just in a very lazy way where, okay, let me check this box and say, oh yeah, is there an African in my team? Yeah, here's one. Like be able to find people who are active, who are passionate, and get them in. And also listen to them. One of the problems in academics sometimes is this kind of elitism, where when you are not using the jargon, people think that you don't know what you are talking about. So it's important that Western scientists try to really deeply understand what others are saying, and be able to include, be able to collaborate effectively. That's how it works. So I think it's about be inclusive. As I said earlier, it's also about making sure that you And also patience. I'm like, for instance, sometimes you might not have ready kind of scientists that you can work with, but bring them in as a postdoc, bring them in as graduate students, and work with them, to turn into an effective scholar you can work with. So that's what it is. So when I came to the US, as I said, I was, to Canada, I was mostly, a math student. But it's my advisor, Roger Myerson, the Nobel Prize in Economics in 97, and Chris Udry, who worked a lot on in Ghana, who helped me turn my African experience into becoming a social scientist. So now, basically I'm a scholar as they are. But when I came, I was just a student. So what I'm saying, if you look ahead proactively, you can overcome those limitations. But you need to the right approach. You also need to be very open-minded. Yeah.
And I think also connecting with people like yourself and all the other researchers that you are bringing together with the council will also help.
Exactly. So today we are one click away to knowing who is doing what, and that's very important. But also important for international organizations, for instance, to trust African from the diaspora. I'm talking about the foundations, like for instance, much of the big research are happening at Oxford, at LSE, at Princeton, at UC Berkeley, and many of those institutions have big donations from foundations to do the research where they are. And, it's important that that the donor community also understand that you have to get African from diaspora lead the way, in terms of, the research, which is, basically relevant to African development. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to follow up because Lulu asked another question, which is actually quite interesting and probably relevant for Africa, which is what are your thoughts about engaging with policymakers? I found this particularly challenging in my own research, where policymakers were often hesitant to new ideas thinking at times. And the reason why I pulled this question up is because we have a mindset problem in Africa in terms of getting front and center of innovating. So when you go to a lot of our ministries and even some of the corporates, we're still using paper. We haven't adapted new ways of doing things, and we're very slow to innovate. So what advice do you have to her question in particular about policymakers, but just in terms of the innovative agenda and actually making sure that Africa delivers on that?
Yeah. So in terms of engagement with policymakers, I think it's super important that also there we are patient. So I think through African School of Economics and other institutions in Africa, we have young people who know research, who have done research, being part of governments, being part of agencies. It will make it easier, because the thing about that, many of the people who are policymakers, many of them are like, they are not educated in the use of science and research to make decisions.
Or educated,
So,
period, for some.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I might be political, so I should.
Okay, it's on me. It's on me.
Because education is very broad. You have to be very flexible. So anyway, so I think this is so by doing training program, by making sure that the new hires, the new younger people who are part of, decision making, it will help. And then on top of it is not being, just do your work, and make sure that there are workshops and public kind of engagement events that you invite people. They may not listen to you right away, but just keep doing that, because maybe what I'm saying is that public engagement with public policymaker has to be a medium-term strategy, not a short-term strategy. So even if the hope is that even if you have even a couple of people paying attention, then it will go into snowball. so that more and people are going to pay attention and you are going to be where you want to be. But you don't compromise your research, don't compromise the quality of your work to please policymakers or anything, you know. So assume that they will be at some point pay will be pay more attention. But I think the key is another thing which is key is to identify the most active and the most engaging people in a given agency. Sometimes, like the ministry and the ministry kind of advisors are not the type you can engage with, but you can find like somebody working at the statistics department, somebody working in a position which is not high end, who are paying attention. And I mean, and also if you have opportunity, for instance, to help them with their career by saying, well, you know what, if you do this very, very well, then there's an opportunity for an internship, an opportunity for this and that, then they'll be more engaged. So what I'm saying, don't focus too much on the institution in general. Sometimes focus on individuals within the institution. Be patient, and also let's think about getting younger people currently in graduate school, currently masters or PhD. Let's encourage some of them to be in government, to be in governmental agencies, so that they will be our partners, our collaborators in the future. You know.
That's really good advice. So we're
Yeah.
coming to the hour. So your final thoughts. So this is like your call to action. So what are the like, inspiring words to people
I
at home
know.
and abroad? Any pep talk or what you want to see for Africa in future?
So, okay, two levels. So, first, at institution level, we have to think always in terms of building institutions. You know, like for instance, my work, setting up a school, setting up a Pan African Research Council, creating a small center of excellence within an university. You know, because there is no way that individually you'll make it. You know, you need to set up something to make your work more effective. So, thinking institutionally, you know, it's important. But also at individual level, um, having, you know, like being always on the move in terms of asking questions, you know, why this, why that, you know, how this, how that, you know, open-minded about talking to everyone. You know, like for instance, I published a paper in a top journals, but you know, before I publish it, I talked to my daughter who is in sixth grade, you know, and I explained to her when she got it, and I said, yes, I have a point, you know. So talking to your parents who even are not, who might not have gone to school, you know. So being open-minded, it's very, very, very important. This is highly, highly, highly needed. But then be very ambitious and don't let anybody, you know, getting you discouraged. You know, I mean, especially as a black man and black woman, we always have people doubting what we are doing, what we are. Don't pay attention. You know, so obviously your action will be the best way to respond to those. And then, least not last, is being able to connect with other Africans across the globe, and like what we are doing. I think you know this kind of events that we set up, we should have more of that, at all level, so that we can promote the work that each other is doing, and that's all we need. So I think you know make sure that you remain very, very positive, very entrepreneurial, and you have higher standard for yourself, higher standard in terms of excellence, and also in terms of ethics. So this is very, very important. So that's my final word. So you can see from my you can see from my body language how excited I am to be part of this, and I hope we do more of that. And then next time, I'll get other colleagues also to contribute to the fantastic work that you are doing.
Oh, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you coming on the show because
Yeah.
the objectives. I mean, obviously the objective of Ongolo is to promote Africans in Africa and the amazing work that we're doing. But you've inspired me to really focus on innovation as well. And I'm definitely going to I'm updating my blog right now, but I'm definitely
already.
I am. I mean, I was already updating it because the current blog is the old format of just blogs, and now I've got conversations. But I'm also tracking things like diversity, and I want to track innovation in Africa, and at least put that front and center as an agenda that not just you and your colleagues, but everybody needs to rally around the topic of innovation, so that Africa becomes relevant when it comes to problem solving. I mean, that's my mission.
Yeah, we have so much to offer. So the key, we'll remain in touch, and I will send you all the materials, and
and I'll publish it on my blog. Yeah,
absolutely.
And we'll definitely stay in touch with my other work with the Global Center for Risk and Innovation in Toronto. So I definitely want to link you up with the founders, and then see how we can get all the scientists to join that. Because to Lulu's point about the global south is not included in a lot of the agenda, we actually have a platform that is willing to champion Africa.
We have to be there. We have to be there, and sometimes we don't have to be invited. We show up. So,
that's my attitude. I'm like barging into places and saying Africa needs a seat on this table, and that's the whole point.
Exactly.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and thank you to everyone who joined the show today.
I saw the comments. Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Leonard, and we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. So thank you so much to everyone for joining today's program. I'm really excited by what is happening on the continent and the opportunities, and I hope that you found today's presentation or discussion with Leonard to be as stimulating as I did. So as I said before, I will have the material on the website. So please subscribe to ongolo.com if you haven't already, and then you can keep up to date with the exciting innovation work that's going on. So take care and see you next time. Bye.